This is The Second Studio, hosted by two architects, myself, David Lee, and Marina Borderonnet. This week, it's the two of us in another after-hours conversation. Casual chat. And this week, what do we ramble about? A lot of griping and moaning about tech support and other supports and things like that nature. And we talk about contractors, finding contractors, working with contractors. We talk about architects. We talk about projects. We talk about efficiency.
We talk about
workflows.
Socializing parties.
We talk about socializing. And that's it, right?
Yeah, that's a lot of random stuff. But it's an after hours. So
yeah, great. Sponsors.
Spreadsheets can't bring your designs to life, but Programma can. Say hello to a bespoke integrated software suite built by and for experienced architecture and design professionals. Use your Pinterest image library to build collaborative mood boards, then turn them into shared online presentations with a click using Programma's pinboards. Use the Programma Web Clipper to build a centralized specification library for your studio. Share always up-to-date specifications and product schedules with clients, trades, and colleagues by generating beautiful, branded, live links and client dashboards. Programma's clean, minimal interface allows your work to shine. Start for free and save 25% on annual plans at programma.design/secondstudio. Designers and architects, if you're looking for a powerful and real-time visualization and VR tool, then check out Enscape. Why is Enscape special? Well, it's super easy to use because it's a plugin and not a standalone application, which means you can work directly in your SketchUp, Rhino, ArchiCAD, Vectorworks, or Revit model. It only takes a couple clicks from installation to creating your first rendering. Enscape does realistic renderings, 360-degree panoramas and videos, and virtual reality environment. We use Enscape and we think you would love it too, so click the Enscape 3D link in our show notes to learn more.
Fellow architects and interior designers, if you're looking for an ultra-fast and robust BIM computer program for your office, then check out ArchiCAD. ArchiCAD leads the industry by enabling architectural and interior design firms around the world to freely design, supported by innovative technology that expands as far as the imagination can stretch. ArchiCAD is also always evolving and advancing, which allows designers to push that technology to their advantage while working in an accurate model. So start your fully functioning free trial today by clicking on the ArchiCAD link in our show notes. This is The Second Studio. Here we go.
TV advertisements are the worst.
We don't see TV advertisements because we stream stuff.
And whenever we do, it's like anything that's like health related being advertised is a weird thing. Because it's like, I don't really need to know. My doctor should be the one who knows this medication and just give me the stuff that I need, right?
Yeah.
And in the States, it's like you get like a plethora of side effects and things that everybody is just trying to cover their butt by listing everything that can happen on radio or on TV.
Yeah.
And I'm like, even for like new health insurance, we just signed up for new health insurance last week. And the agent I was working with had to read me prompts of like stuff just to cover their butt. And I'm like, I mean, I get it, but also that's ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. The way the medical system works in the United States is very, very peculiar. And the fact that we even need to have, or companies feel like they need to have advertisements for medication, it's a very strange thing.
Yeah.
Like, they're promoting... What was that movie we watched on Netflix that was loosely based on reality? Or it might have been very much based on reality. It's called Pain Medication or something. It had Emily Blunt and Captain America guy, Chris Evans.
Painkiller or something
Something like that, yeah. And you wouldn't think medicine is something that would be a industry and a space where there would be advertisements, lobbyists, parties... Like, what are we doing?
No, it's so
Shouldn't we create the medication and then just prescribe what's necessary? And if there's a better one, do that and have it funded by the government? I don't know. It seems
and the fact that medication is being sold like food or like makeup, and you just have to like sell a certain quota. You have to make margins. You have to make profit. You have to do all those things, and you have to find doctors who are willing to send and they prescribe as many as they can in order for the company to keep working with them and whatever. And it's like, this is gross. Like, it's people's health. What are we doing?
You were talking about the advertisements having in excess of a list of things that could happen, so they can probably tell you if something goes wrong. Well, I told you it could happen. And I was on the phone with someone the other day, and what was it for? I think it was for something tech related. Been having a lot of tech issues with Office, which is such a pain in the ass. But you get on the phone, and it was the same thing. They start reciting to you stuff.
Yeah.
And the guy I was speaking with was British, which was not expected. Usually it's someone that has an Indian accent. And so he's talking to me very casually. And then he goes, okay, now hold on a second. I got to read this to you. And he reads some stuff so fast I couldn't understand it.
Yeah.
It's like a paragraph of information.
Yeah.
And he says, like, okay, do you comply? Yeah, sure. I need it to work, so sure, I comply or whatever. Just get it to work. I don't know. I think that if so many companies have to read that kind of information to people or give that information to people in a way where they know no one's going to listen, no one understands what you're talking about, but they're just going to say yes, then the system is broken. That doesn't make sense, right? I don't know. I started watching Blade Runner 2049 again, just for fun.
Which I love that movie, but it's so sad. I don't.
Yes.
I can't watch it again.
But that's our reality. We're in it now. It's happening now.
Look, man, talking
like
about
you call a company, you never speak to a person. You get all this bullshit, right? Medication's bullshit. It's all bullshit.
You were talking about like being on the phone for like trying to resolve like office issues or like whatever. Like I was on the phone with our printer company because our printer like for some reason like decided to do weird things, and we did change internet company, so I was trying to like hook it up to the Wi-Fi and this and that, and I called Epson, and this lady who was really nice was like, well, what does the message says on the printer? I'm like, it says that. It's like, okay, well then it must come from your internet company. I'm like, no, my internet is working fine. I'm connected on my phone with the same login and password info. And she's like, no, it must be coming from your internet company. I'm like, no, I'm telling you, I'm with the phone. I'm calling you.
Though. Yeah.
And she was like, please disconnect your phone from the Wi-Fi company and reconnect. I'm like,
what for?
I was like, it's working now. I could do it. I don't think it's going to do anything. So she made me do it. I was like, okay, I'm disconnecting. I'm reconnecting with the same info I just gave you. That's not working with the printer. And she's like, okay, now we can move to the next step. And I'm like, come on, like you just wasted like 2 minutes of my time doing something that was unnecessary just to prove you that it does not come from them.
The first thing I do when I get on a phone call with any kind of tech support is I tell them very clearly and slowly, I've done all of these things. Like we had, I don't know if it's luck, if it's God, if it's something, but everything fails at the same time.
Oh yeah.
So let's see, we got different internet, of course. I hate setting up internet because no matter what you do, it never works the first time. You think that you have the cable, goes into the wall, you plug the other end of the cable into the box, and you plug that box into power, and then there's another box you plug into that box, and then maybe you would wait like 10 seconds for it to boop, 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 and then you would have internet. But it doesn't do that. It never fucking does that, right? So you're on the phone. I'm on the phone with them for, it was like an hour. It was a ridiculously long time. So internet fails, printer fails, which is obviously a big problem. It was also the printer was doing something very, very strange. It was taking, it's 11 by 17 printer. It would take sections across the page and then like a half-inch width of section, and it would take that and then print it off by like 3/4 of an inch on top of other stuff.
Yeah.
And it would do that sporadically. So sometimes the sections were half an inch, sometimes they were 1/4, sometimes they were shifted by 1/4, sometimes by an inch. It was like the most bizarre thing that no one could figure out. So that happens.
And when I called them before about that, their answer was like, it must come from your PDF file.
Yeah, no.
And I'm like, no, PDF looks fine on my screen. Your printer is what makes it from the computer to paper, okay?
It's
what? No.
And then, let's see.
My computer?
Then your computer died, like the main machine, which was really, really not good. So then we had to go on buy a new computer in the middle of the day, toward the end of the day. So we had to go buy a new computer. And it's like, I was not planning on buying a new computer. And of course, you got a laptop, which is cool. I'm like, okay, well, the benefit of iMacs has always been that when it dies or gets too old, use it as a monitor, because these are actually really good screens for the price, generally. And you come to find that any iMac 2019 and later that has a Retina display, you cannot use as a monitor without buying a third-party software's hardware thing, which apparently doesn't work super great. So I was like, okay, great, let's spend another $1,500 on a monitor. Buying the shit was more complicated than you think it would be. Yeah. Another example of us living in this anti-human kind of world. Is it not working?
No.
Why not? Wait, really? Oh, there we go. I was about to say one more thing we could complain about in the podcast. So we bought Apple, right? We order it online, and then our plan is to go to the store and pick it up. But we ordered it past, I think, 4 p.m., which meant that the pickup window then gets shoved to next morning. And we were on a deadline, so we needed a machine, which is a really bad position to be in when you need something like that. So call Apple, and they say, well, it's not until next morning. I said, well, they have it in stock at the store. I just wanted to place the order here, and then we're going to drive 5 minutes to 10 minutes to the store and pick it up. They have it in the store. And she said, well, the thing is, what you have to do is go to the store, tell them what you want, and they have to call me, and then I'll push through the order so it can be released. I'm like, I don't understand why. It seems like I'm just throwing a boomerang, but okay, fine.
Yeah, really.
Go to the store, and they're confused. They're like, I don't know who you spoke with, but we can't do that. I'm like, no. Here's the thing. Here's my position about all companies, right? The thing is, most people who work at a company, when you talk to that individual, they talk as if, well, no, you're talking to me. I'm like, no, it's one company. Yeah. I'm talking to the company. I do not care if you are one person. I'm still interfacing with the company. Your company told me one thing very clearly, and they were confident. So you need to get your shit together. So they ended up sorting it out, and they're like, okay, well, we're going to try and push it through, but it's going to take some time. I'm like, I don't understand why it takes time.
It's here,
It's like through the invisible door that you guys are going through in the back, the aluminum door, I can almost see the computer. And they say, okay, we're going to have it out in 10 minutes. We were waiting for probably close to an hour, I think, 45, 50,
the whole thing
55.
took over an hour. And we got the manager of the store who checked on us 2 or 3 times, and we're no, we're just waiting for pickup. They're getting the thing ready. And
so finally, after, I don't know, whatever period of time, we go and approach another person and say, you see us, we've been sitting here longer than anyone else. We're basically part of the staff now. And everyone knows what we're doing here. Can I get an ETA on this thing? And they're like, oh, well, you're sitting at the wrong table. I'm like, the guy said he was going to bring out in 5 minutes. So
it's been an hour.
And you all know our faces. So then we go to the other table and oh, yeah, your computer's ready. I'm like, oh, well, could maybe one of the third of you working here tell us that it's ready? No.
It was pretty bad. And it sounded like the store was packed, daytime, weekend time, Apple store. It was 8 p.m. on a Thursday. There was 10 individuals in there looking to buy Apple products.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not hard to keep tabs. And then after an hour, I'm like, I need to sit down. I'm tired of standing and waiting, so sit down. And then this girl comes back out with the girl who greet us in the store, asked me for my name. She's like, oh, I can find your order. What was it for? And I'm like, oh, I'm picking up a new computer. And she's like, oh, you're sitting at the repair table. And I'm like, how in the hell am I supposed to know this is the repair table? There's no sign.
Well, there's no sign that said repair table. There's a sign that said pickup. But I figured because we spoke to 3 people and the guy who was running back and forth looked at us and says, I'll have it out in a few minutes.
I know.
I'm like, okay, well, it's not like the store is,
no, but it's
it's one big box.
It's everybody's doing their little one task and they don't actually
well, that's why the store
work
manager
and move around as human who are these people have been here, their computer is on the way, I don't know. It's pretty weird.
But all of these companies have created all these systems, right, to make things, I don't know if it's more efficient. I think it's just to make things, I guess maybe more efficient for them or easier for them.
Yeah.
But then for all the consumers, it just becomes such a maze. It's really I'm trying to think of the one company that's consistently easy and good is Amazon, which Amazon is plagued with problems behind the scenes, and it makes it difficult to like even use them as a business because of their issues. But I will say, whenever I have an issue with a product or whatever else, you go on there, you type I need help, and you select phone call or text phone call, and they usually call you, so you don't have to wait. They call you within, most of the times is within 10 seconds. And the person's always nice. They are efficient, and they know what they're doing, and they figure it out. And they're like the perfect combination of all four of those things. Like most people, when you speak with them, they're too nice, right? Or they try to be too efficient and they don't pay attention, or whatever it is. But Amazon customer service has always been really good. So we get the new machine, get it set up. It's exciting, but also kind of deflating because, again, it's like expensive. I was not expecting to spend that money. And then we have another computer, which is in our podcast studio. That dies. And I'm like, are you serious right now? Like, why? You've been fine for, it's an older computer. It's an old machine. It was like decade old. I don't know, whatever it is. No, not a 10
years old.
Is it 10 years? Okay, that's pretty old. But still, no signs of slowing down because we don't use it for anything except for
turning on Zoom and turning off Zoom.
And then it just stopped. So go through all the troubleshooting, which is not fun. Figure that out. And I go to reinstall the This is like, I don't know who's interested in this conversation. Probably architects who go through this bullshit. Reinstall the OS. I'm like, yes, Command R, baby. Boot it up. Reinstall the OS. It says there's a problem. No problem. Disk utility. Repair all the disks I see. I don't know what these disks are. There's 3 of some kind. I don't know. Repair all of them. It's going to be amazing. Done. Okay. Reinstall OS. Yes. Select the hard drive. Hard drive is grayed out. Click on the hard drive. You have a SMART error. The hard drive needs to be replaced. And you need to try and just replace the hard drive. The message was like something like, too bad. It wasn't
end of game.
Yeah, an end of game.
Yeah.
Like, so,
that. You know what that whole week, because it was kind of like,
frustrating.
It just goes on series, and you're like, okay, how many more of this is going to happen, right? And it honestly reminded me of my time when I was a Windows user in school, and I had laptop, and like every 6 months, my laptop would just like do weird stuff. And crash or viruses or whatever, and I would just like literally be like pulling my hair out and like the amount of frustration that those little smart machines can create on humans is unprecedented. Honestly,
I know they say you're supposed to, when you become frustrated, like breathe in and breathe out at a certain pace, and it physically like decompresses your stress state. But I will tell you, when I'm at that moment, I'm like, fuck you and your little box that has lines going around and telling me when to breathe and breathe out. I'm just going to be angry.
When my computer started doing weird stuff, like in the middle of the week, I was like, okay, I'm about to cry, but this is not going to help. So just stay cool. And then I called up. I was like, okay, you know what? The last thing, I was trying desperately to finish what I was doing on the drawing with my computer running at 65% of its system with everything shut down, which I'm like, why?
Yeah, I know.
You know, what is happening? Then you try and call the Apple people to resolve it. And I start talking to this lady, and she
doesn't know.
No. The thing, she just, I don't know if she hung up or we got disconnected. And I'm like, okay, so I got to do that again. I ended up with a person who was really nice, and I was trying to stay nice and calm because I'm sure that she gets those phone calls with. And actually, I was asking her, like, you probably get a lot of like angry people because your stuff doesn't work. And she's like, it's all over the map. You know, some days it's like people are really not nice, and I get it. And some days, like, they understand that my job is not fun either.
Yeah, no, I don't envy those people. The thing with most of these issues, it's just, the solution is simple. Just have people interacting with people. That's all it is.
Or just have money and buy a new one. That's the simplest.
Yeah, that's true. But I mean, like, the whole customer interfacing thing, just have people interacting with people and have that person take care of you. That's like all that's required, right? Oh. It's not a person who's one cog in a machine. They have to talk to another person, then radio another person, and then go through this system. And I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to do that because I'm, in my position at my seat at this company, so I can't do that thing. It's like just...
It's crazy. I mean, even you go into, like, let's say, doctor's office, they have their own software they use, and sometimes, like, the thing is not allowing them to put your information in one place or another, and I'm like, there's no way you could just write it down and, like, put it in later, or,
I have a written list of all of the login information and passwords that I have, which I started doing years ago because I realized it was a necessity because I couldn't keep track, and using one password for everything doesn't make sense. And I was looking at the list the other day, and I don't scroll. I don't
there's a lot.
I don't go through it really. I just add, right?
Oh, yeah.
But there's a ton. I don't know how much time of my life is spent just logging into shit. Just logging into stuff.
Are you logging into yourself right now?
And then figuring out like what I'm supposed to do after I log in. Like everything's an app, everything's a login, everything's a this, everything's a that. And I mean, maybe this is the way it should be in terms of efficiency for all the different amazing technologies that are out there. But
talking about passwords, that reminds me of. I told you that reminds me of my dad's password. He had a list too, but it was like a coded list of its password.
Of course he did.
That's like how nut the guy was. I would always remember he had like the tiniest desk into, what used to be their closets in their bed, in my parents' bedroom, that he removed the door, put like just a standard sized desk at the bottom, added shelves above so they could store all of their paperwork and whatever, and had his little computer and his little keyboard with a desk mat, right? And if you lifted the desk mat, there was like a little piece of paper smaller than a postcard size that was taped onto the desk with some sort of like code from the Egyptians or whatever. Like it was like with like colors, numbers, and letters. And I'm like, what is this? And then you would have to open a spreadsheet on his computer that was probably password protected, and then read that. There's basically a chart on how to interpret the Excel sheet to find out what password was it for whatever you were looking for. And I'm like, he probably only had like 12 at the time, so it wasn't that bad. But I'm like, dude, you could never do that with our list. Like, we have like dozens and
you
dozens.
spent half a day figuring it out.
It's so funny.
I know. It's just it's so tough. And this kind of reminded me, like we were talking to somebody recently about architects and contractors and the pros and cons of going with different architects and different contractors. There's many ways we can slice that conversation up, but the topic in that conversation was about the size of the business. And I had heard recently from a couple designers that they've seen a handful of their clients more recently as a somewhat of a trend. We'll see. Being more interested in hiring smaller offices because the architecture offices, because they don't like the idea of, I'm going to hire this big name architect, right? But I'm going to work with a project manager and I'm never going to see that big name architect. Yeah. And they might show up to like the important meetings and they can make their promises of like, well, my staff understands what they're doing and this person's just been with me for 10 years, so they know what they're doing. But for some clients, they just don't like that. They want to know that the person is the person that they are, either working with or they're designing it or, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
I'm not saying that a person should not hire a mid-size meaning 40 or so people architecture office. There's a lot of really good mid-size offices. I've worked at giant offices that were 400 people and they were phenomenal. It's just a matter of personal preference, I suppose. But well, okay, first of all, to be clear, the issues that I have that I've been explaining with, the tech stuff that I was griping about, those don't exist in any architecture office. No architecture office is big enough to where they have those kind of systems in place. But there is something more about that pure, direct, human, simple connection that you're the person. Yeah, I'm the person. Sometimes when people call our office, clients, potential clients, and I answer the phone, they're like, "Oh, you're the guy." I'm like, "I'm the guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, you're the guy that's on the website. That's you." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm David. This is me." He's like, "Oh, I don't think I speak to you. I'm like, yeah,
You should do like a Rick Joyce thing. You should, like do a different voice when somebody calls and then switches. Oh, hi, this is Frame Architects. Who do you want to speak with? Oh, I want to speak with David. Okay, let me transfer you. Oh, hi, this is David. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying that if you're a client, you call an office and they have a front desk person, that's a problem. Or sometimes people call us and I miss the call because I'm in the middle of something, like, that's whatever. But I don't know, maybe I'm speculating that I think maybe more people in the near future will want that. They don't want to have to go through gate, because guess what? Every other experience we have is that, right? Based on what we've just said. And I think a lot of people would agree. So when you call a business up and it's the person, or at the very least you call a business up and the person you work with is the person, it's kind of like, that's really nice. And speaking as a customer as well, for myself, I like working with smaller businesses because of that. Like you're the person. Like I know you, and it I don't know. I'm not necessarily saying it's more efficient, but it just feels better.
Yeah,
feels more organic or something. It just feels right. It's like it's human to human. I'm having a relationship through. We're talking. We're meeting. We're having conversations. We're going to work it out. We're going to have tough times and hard times, but you're a partner of mine. Let's do it. And when it's not that way, it's just, the world feels gray.
I know. The other thing that annoys me with all of those like processes and, steps and whatever is when you go on a website and there is like a little chat box on the bottom right. And I'm like,
fuck off.
Okay, great. I'm just going to talk to somebody directly. I don't like phone calls. And actually, sometimes people pay more attention if they read something than when they listen. So I'm like, okay, I'm just going to talk to that thing. And it's a bot. And
They're all bots now.
And I'm like, well, how helpful is that? So I'm like, speak with representative. And they give me 5 choices. And I'm like, fuck you, speak with representative. And I just give up and I go somewhere else. I'm like, you know what? You don't want to give me the information. You want to help me. Then I'm just going to go to your competitor. And that's going to be that.
Yeah. And, a lot of the AI stuff is being touted as incredible. And a lot of it is. And I think at some point the AI will be so sophisticated that the hindrances that we're describing will melt away.
Yeah.
That will be the case. At that point in time, shit's gonna be weird, and like what life is going to be like is gonna, I don't know. We'll see. Predicting it's gonna be difficult, but until that point.
We're talking about AI, so we went to a Christmas dinner party, right? And we had a conversation with someone who was telling us about AI that could, like some sort of app that could basically take a video of somebody speaking and translate it into another language using their voice and their intonation and all of their flaws or whatever you call it. Mm-hmm. So like if you take a video of you, for example, and you want to translate it to French, well, we would watch you speak in French with your voice through that thing, and that's just bananas. I mean,
it's amazing.
It's amazing, but it's also freaky because then what's the truth and what's not? What's made up and what's real?
That is the territory we are close to being in. It's already happening to a small degree, and it's going to ramp up exponentially, right?
I mean, it's impressive. It's amazing, but it's also like, anything that's amazing, it's eventually going to turn into like an horror movie, right?
Okay, it's a little dark way of looking at it. The thing with that particular technology that was being discussed at that dinner is I mumble a lot, especially in these after hours. So I'm like, well, let's see how good it is. You know what I'm saying?
I'd be curious to try it.
It won't know what I'm saying half the time.
Well,
it's funny. Sometimes people, they listen to the show and we meet them and they're like, oh, Marina's voice is amazing. And, oh, your voice is really good too, David. I'm like, no, it's not.
Oh, your voice is pretty good.
No, it's not. I mumble. I have struggle with my R's still. I'm too lazy. I attended a lecture years ago, an architecture lecture, hard pivot. And they were saying, it was this theoretical historian kind of thing, right? And they were saying that the first way that a human being thinks is through language. And so that lecture was about the connection between language and design.
You mean
right?
like you you speak to yourself in your head?
No.
As a way of thinking?
Even before that, when it's raw thoughts that are happening in your mind. You're not like, it's not like you're consciously thinking, let me think about this, then I'm going to say that. No, just the raw thoughts that are happening throughout your day-to-day when you're not speaking is happening in language. So like language, whatever language your native language is, or the one you've adopted, is the first mechanism that happens when you're thinking. That's the way the thought happens, right? When you think, do you feel like it's in words first?
I don't think it's words. I think it's probably images more than words. I have to think about that.
I know. I could be completely wrong. They could be completely wrong. But I thought that was a very interesting thing.
But it's funny because now when I sometimes you think, and it's not like you're talking to yourself in your head, but your thoughts are talking to you, right? It's a very abstract conversation. No. But
I think you
like
and I both need to see therapists.
No, I think it's too much of a mess. But I think I used to think in French, and I don't think I do anymore.
You think you don't, or you think you don't?
I don't know.
But so going back then to the topic of the sizes of businesses, one of the legitimate concerns that clients have when they're working with a large architecture office or a large contracting business, general contractor, is that is going to be more expensive not because of the quality, but because there's just more people involved.
It's the overheads.
An excess of people.
Yeah.
Their overhead. That it's going to be difficult to get through to somebody to make a decision, right? Because of the hierarchy, because of the layers. And therefore, also, things are going to get lost in the shuffle, that layering. Things get lost between the levels. And then it's not going to be as efficient. And there's not going to be oversight, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. My point is, in theory, that's true when you talk about a business generally. But in general, when it comes to mid-size construction companies, that is not necessarily the case. What happens is when a contractor is large enough, they become more efficient because they have to be.
Yeah.
And they have systems and personnel in place that makes the construction effort and pre-construction much better. And if it's a small-time contractor, small-time meaning is one guy and they have maybe two people who are on their payroll and the rest are subbed out, that for most architects, what I would consider like high-performing architects, really, really difficult to work with. If you know them, you had a long-term relationship like we have with some of ours, it's different because we first of all, there are exceptions and we know what they're about, et cetera. But outside of that, it becomes really difficult for the architect because there's just like the good contractors now generally, they have a project manager, they have sometimes they call it project engineer, but they have a site super, so they have someone that's on site in person overseeing stuff every day. Then they have another person who's in an office behind a computer. And sometimes that person's on the site in a trailer or whatever, but they have a couple different people, right? So that when we're doing our stuff, we can email and converse with somebody, and then it gets pushed through very quickly to the people on site.
Sometimes having those layers is actually better than not.
There's kind of a minimum amount of layers you want actually out of a contractor. If you're expecting a level of service, A, and you're expecting a level of quality, B.
Yeah.
Right? A good quality you can find it at any size, but the level of service and efficiency, it's really hard to do when you're a one-person shop as a contractor and you're running around between different projects. It's just difficult, right? And so you need to have people who are like assigned to specific positions for the client, for the architect. Like I'll say this. One of my biggest pet peeves is when I'm working with a contractor and they don't do emails in quotes, or they're not good at emails in quotes. I'm like, what? And they say, well, why don't you just call me? Why don't you just text me? I'm like, well, we're going to have phone calls for sure when you need to talk about things. And yes, we can text for, we do FaceTime or whatever stuff for sure, but we need to be functioning through emails.
Well, First of all, it's like, why would I be the one having to comply with how you work? Like, how about we meet halfway here? Like, you're not more important than I am.
Well,
so,
the contractors who don't do emails or don't like them is because they don't have a big enough operation to do that, right? And a lot of those contractors at some point, like we've known plenty, where they do enough work and they get far enough, they're like, I got to find an email person, whatever title, project manager, office manager, whatever title, right? To take care of this stuff. And the reason why architects like emails is, first of all, we're behind a computer a lot of times doing the serious work. And on that computer that's the space where we can like check dimensions, check it against a 3D model, check it against our other stuff on the
screenshot, attach files, like
do markups.
It's so like how different threads of email about different topics. So when you're searching back on an email, you just like keyword search. It's like, I can give you the information on the phone, but if you're not taking any notes, how are you going to remember what we're talking about now in 2 weeks when we actually get to it? Like that's actually an inefficient way to work.
It's this threshold, right? Because it's like any other process, any other project, any other thing, there's a threshold. And up to that threshold, you can do things kind of the loosey-goosey way. And to a certain point, it is more efficient to just be quick, text, call, or whatever version of that for whatever thing you're doing. I'm not going to read the instructions. I'm just going to bang through assembling this thing. And depending on the thing, that's actually faster. Just go through it, blast through it, and be done. Cram. Don't study in advance, just cram, right? But there is that threshold, and once you cross it, that doesn't work anymore. And that threshold is determined by a few things. It's determined by mostly client expectations, but let's say it's determined by quality of construction, quality of design, quality of project, determined by I think efficiency based on the size of the project, and then thirdly, it's also the client's expectations of customer service. You can call customer service; it can be labeled many different ways, but what we do and how we perform is customer service, contractor customer service, right? And and so a lot of contractors, right? They practice in that kind of small time way, and they get to a point they're like, I need to find someone to take care of this stuff. The other thing about emails is it's record keeping to look back on stuff, but also if something doesn't go right, which is always the case, we can look back and see, yes, who to blame if you want to think about it that way, but also to see, okay, where did we make a misstep so we can more efficiently correct this thing? I don't know. We had a contractor who wanted to do everything via WhatsApp, and I was like, this is horrible because
I'm
there's
sending
no
you PDF via WhatsApp. It's like, no, I'm not doing that.
There's no record keeping. They can delete stuff if they want to from the messages. I'm like, no, because these projects, even a small one, it's going to last months, years, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. You can't have a project run on text messages and calls for a year. Are you mental? Not when there's hundreds of thousands of dollars or billions of dollars at stake. You can't do that. You crazy? And
no, it's actually so inefficient in the communication that the client ends up spending more money on everybody because, again, things get lost, things get misinterpreted, things don't get received. Yeah. You can't track stuff, so you have to spend more time trying to figure out what was decided, what happened, what's supposed to be happening.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. Well, it goes back to the last one of the Project Companions recordings we did about the kind of like not taking shortcuts, and also just putting extra time and money for the client into preparedness to then save for later. And it's a very similar kind of mindset. It's just so tempting, and I get it. It's so tempting to not read the instruction manual. It's so tempting to just be like, well, we don't really need a contractor who has these two other people or this one other person. We'll just go with this person because they're close to me or whatever rationale. And man, it never works.
And there is something very unprofessional for our industry, I feel like, when things are done via text or phone call.
I missed the first part. What did you say? It's not professional?
And not professional in our industry when you just work through phone calls and text message, like no emails at all. Because it's more of like, well, let's just DIY the thing. Let's just like wing it. Let's just try and like hack it together. And it's Look, if you're trying to repaint your kitchen, that's probably enough. Yeah, you could do that. If you're actually trying to build something that is custom and it's designed, like, yeah, good luck, you know.
It's hard, too. It's hard because I think there is a perception. Most people have done some kind of physical construction or at-home DIY. I wouldn't call it construction, but DIY stuff. You're assembling furniture, you're mounting your TV, maybe you built a little bookshelf. You're doing something, right? Fixing track, I don't know, whatever it's going to be. And which is great. I think that this is based on no evidence at all. I think that more people should be engaging in that kind of activity. I think it's just healthy. Of course, I'm super biased being that I'm an architect as a background in carpentry. But I think people have that experience and they look at this other project of, let's say even a small project. Okay, like full bathroom gut remodel. And maybe it's a primary bathroom, so it's a little bit larger, so maybe we're going to move some plumbing around and whatever, right? And it's like, well, can't be that complicated. So I'm going to hire a contractor. This contractor is small time, but it should be more than enough, right, to do this bathroom or to do this bathroom and kitchen or do this whatever thing. And the difference and the gap between what it takes for someone to do DIY project, from that to even a small bathroom remodel, is really, 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 really big. It's like 100 units different.
And there is a difference and a huge gap between a great handyman and a builder.
Yeah, no, that's
you know, I mean, you could have the
case.
best guy who comes and fixes the stuff in your house, and you have a problem, you could call him and he's really nice. But if you ask him to actually build something from zero in your house, there's going to be a lot of figuring out for him.
I agree, and it's just hard at that scale of project, and it's hard for clients to understand it.
Like I wouldn't ask the nurse to do my surgery.
A what?
I wouldn't ask the nurse to do my surgery.
Sure. I don't know what nurses do, but sure.
Well, they check on people. They assist with things, right? But they're not the ones who like make the cuts and like, do the work.
Yeah, and there's also a difference in contractors who are acclimated and interested in working with designers and architects, and they're used to taking someone else's vision, which has been conveyed through a set of drawings and language when we're speaking with them, and then taking that and then making that a reality, right? And then furthermore, when they're building that thing, to then go back, in that process and then call the architect and say, hey, there's this thing, it's not quite, I don't understand what you did, or you made a mistake. Or thirdly, which is really, really critical, which is a sign of a good contractor, they will call and say, well, I understand what you drew and it does make sense and it works, but it doesn't quite look right. Can you want to double check it? That is the best contractor.
And now a quick break to thank the sponsors who support the Second Studio.
The Second Studio podcast is made possible by support from Autodesk. Autodesk has been part of the design conversation since 1982, providing the tools that help architects around the globe imagine and create beautifully designed, memorable buildings that people love and admire. Autodesk supports the work of the Second Studio, bringing the architecture community together, sparking curiosity, and leading vibrant interviews with the industry's visionaries and thought leaders. The Second Studio works hard to carry the architecture conversation forward, and Autodesk is proud to contribute to this podcast. Learn more about Autodesk by clicking the link in our show notes. Dear architects and designers, do you know the current spend on your budget? Can you forecast your next 6 months of performance? Do you know the status of all your projects? Have your team's hours been effectively allocated? If you struggle to answer these questions quickly and easily, then you need to explore Monograph. Monograph is a performance management platform. It helps you and your firm make better day-to-day decisions and anticipate what's next with powerful forecasts. It's designed by architects for architects. With Monograph, you get less obscurity and more visibility, less ambiguity and more clarity, less admin and more design. You have to see it to believe it. Your performance becomes a lot easier to manage because it's no longer hiding from you. Tap the Monograph link in our show notes to see for yourself. I don't want a contractor to be telling the client design opinions. It's horrific. That's like, if there could be one thing at the top of the red flag list of a bad contractor for architects and therefore also for clients, is any contractor who through them or their subs once pitch a design idea to a client.
It's even worse when the designer's around.
Especially none of the good contractors we know will ever do that. It's a cardinal sin to them and to us, and they know it. I was talking to this contractor one time in San Francisco. We're trying to work with him. I hope we get to, because I think he's a fantastic contractor and a really good person. And he was telling me over lunch that he's like, all of my guys know, and I know we do not do that. He tells his subs and his people, on payroll. So if you do that, you could have easily set back that part of the design conversation, which leads to other things in the design, because everything's tied. You've set the architect back 3 months. They made this decision 3 months ago, and they're building upon that decision and working with the client to help them understand why the decision should be made. And now you've thrown a wrench in there. You put in some random idea. And there's a strange thing, too, when you get design opinions from an outside source, even if it's a laborer, a talent seller, a carpenter, or a contractor, whoever else, a non-design person, it registers as being significant because it's now a different source of information.
Yeah.
So this guy was like, don't do that, because you've just hit the reset button to 3 months ago for the architect. And A, they're going to be really pissed at us. And two, it's not our job. We shouldn't be doing that. And he's like, also, I don't want to be doing that. I don't want to be the one involved in those decisions. My passion is executing at a high level.
Yeah. You want to actually build a thing. You don't want to like wander around and wait for it to be decided.
Exactly. So, I mean, I don't know. We'll probably do another recording about the do's and don'ts of contractors, or the goods and the bads. But having contractors, I think, who operate at a certain level with a certain number of people makes a big difference, and ones who understand, the position of the architect and theirs and the clients. And I don't know, it's tough because there's just this massive ocean of builders and architects and designers, so-called designers.
And then it's hard because, again, sometimes the client is the one who kind of like select the people because they like them based on certain things. Mm-hmm. And, I remember once going on site for a media walkthrough of a house I just purchased with a client, and they are probably going to be contractor. And, it's like the client is between us two. Like I don't know this person. He doesn't know me either. Right. And we're each trying to help the client, but like he would say things that are going against what, I was proposing as far as of the design in front of the client and me, and saying stuff. And I'm like, I actually had to correct him because that person was more of a handyman than what I would call a builder. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm the French young female in the room when you guys obviously have more in common than with me. And so who's the client going to listen? He's going to listen to the person who looks like him and sounds like him, because why would you listen to a person that looks completely different and sound completely different? And at the end of the day, I'm like, hey man, like I design custom home. Like if you want to go and shop at Home Depot to like install this thing, like it's up to you. That's not what I do.
Yeah, peace out. Go your way. Fine.
That's fine, but obviously we're not the right team here. That's not the right match. So it's up to the client to decide which way they want to go.
It is really all about matchmaking. If someone could, I mean, I guess that role does exist, but if you could be the perfect matchmaker for people, then they would be super valuable. There's places like House, but I have my opinions about them. The thing is, the matchmaker, I don't know. It's just tough. And part of the reason why we're probably talking about this now, and I think about it so often, is I just come across so many people who are in a tight spot. And they're in a tight spot because they don't know a lot of things we convey on here, or they got unlucky, or they didn't do their research, or they did, but they got unlucky, or they were too kind and they didn't know. Here's like a golden rule for clients. Right? If something doesn't seem to make sense to you, or even at a gut level, it just doesn't feel right. Like, why is it taking so long? Why hasn't this person gotten back to me? Et cetera, then it's probably not right. Are there clients who are psychos and they have a completely distorted view of reality? Yes. But most people are pretty normal and pretty good. And a lot of them are fantastic in our experience. And so if you don't feel like something's right, it's probably not right. Like, here's another mistake I see people making when hiring contractors. They go with the person who's convenient. Because they were recommended by their cousin, or convenient because they're near where they live or where the project is. And proximity is one factor, but I will be honest, of the list of 20 criteria to figure out whether or not this contractor is the one or not the one, or better or worse than the other 5 you're talking with, proximity to the project is very low on the list. As long as they're within the city, it don't matter where in the city they live. I know that's a difficult concept to grasp, and I know that it just feels like having a person who's really close would be a huge benefit. And there is a benefit, but the way I always put it is that if you grabbed 100 contractors, out of the 100, you're probably going to find 2 who are actually good. For someone who cares about, a client who cares about their work, wants service, high-level service, and all those things, right? The chances out of those 100 that one of those 2 is going to be living near you, like your neighbor or down the street, is really not high. No. It's really not high. So anyway, so the proximity thing is something I've heard many occasions, and that's often, again, kind of like people let that be too much of a factor, right? And they overlook the other stuff for the gains of proximity. And, the person being close doesn't solve their lack of efficiency. It doesn't solve the lack of personnel. It doesn't solve their lack of quality. It doesn't solve the fact they've never worked with designers. It doesn't solve the fact that they don't have thorough and clear estimates and proposals, right? Or fee breakdowns. It doesn't solve any of that stuff. And that's actually the stuff you really want to care about. I don't care if it takes them 45 minutes to drive extra. Doesn't matter, right? The person living next door is not going to help. So anyway, I was talking to someone recently, and they hired a person who was like adjacent, right? And they're like, "Yeah, it's been months since they've done this thing for me." I'm like, "Months?" I forget what it was. Something small, like installing a doorknob or something silly. I'm like, that's not an excuse. That you can't. The thing is also, this is human quality, tendency. When something's wrong and it's not our fault, but we're in it, we're being affected by it, we will let that problem persist for much too long before we decide to do something about it.
Yeah.
Because we all think that, well, I know it's going to be a huge pain in the butt to find someone else, and I don't want to go through the mess of finding someone. Then I also have to go through the mess of firing that person, which is not fun. No one likes to do that. And so let's just, I think we're kind of close to the end. We can just I think we can stretch it and get there.
Yeah, but there is also a halfway point between that. Like you could also just voice things, and the other side might just fix it, and everything's gonna get better from that point. It kind of depends like how far you've gone into the wrong. And if the other side would be receptive to that, but it never hurts to voice things before you actually have to get to replace people.
I agree, but then I think a lot of folks would prefer to avoid confrontation. In a non-professional setting, I tend to be that way, where I'm just I don't like it. I don't like upsetting people. I don't like telling people they're in the wrong. Professionally, I'll do it all day, but when I'm out as a customer, I'm kind of shy in that way. And I think a lot of folks are that way too. They don't want.
Me too. I mean, I would probably
actually,
say something to someone if I'm like really reaching my limit.
Yeah.
But
the other thing too, and this is a piece of, we should write this stuff down, piece of information for clients, is that it's also challenging for folks to make that transition or to fire someone or let them go or go a different route, because they have to admit the client has to admit to themselves that they've made a mistake. Right?
Yeah.
And they have to admit the shittiness of the reality at the very least. And a lot of people, they don't want to do that. They would rather pretend. I think it's kind of okay, right? So then what you do is you inflate the positives, which are micro, and you deflate the negatives, which are glaringly obvious to everyone else in the world. And you play that trick on yourself. And I've done it many times before. Like, it's a little bit different, but I remember I was part of this music ensemble, and we had this director who was atrocious. He was just bad. And I and a lot of people in the ensemble knew this director, this person in the leadership position, was just, I don't know. I could write a book on how many things that this person did wrong, right? But you're part of the ensemble. No one was going to leave the ensemble because we loved music. We loved being part of it. And when you're in that position, in that case, I did not go around every day listing in my mind all the things this guy is doing wrong. I did it on occasion, but I didn't do it every day all the time. Because why, right? Because there's no other option for me. So I have to, in a way, sort of pretend that I have to think about the positive things. Again, inflate those, deflate the negatives. Even though at the time, if I really thought about it, I knew it was not that route, that way, that kind of balance. I will look back on it. It was even more imbalanced than I realized at the time. And I think it's I don't know. It's a human tendency thing. It's hard to I guess step back, step outside, and see it for what it actually is. But right. The easy hack to that, again, if it feels wrong, then it's probably wrong, right? If the contractors charge you a bunch of money, it doesn't seem right, then ask them. And if they don't show you that doesn't feel right, then it's not right.
And it's, I mean, for clients, it's kind of always a tricky thing because, like, your house looks like a mess. Like, your house has been taken apart. So if you piss off the guy that's trying to, like, do the work and hopefully finish it, like, is your house going to be finished? And if it's not going to be finished, like, how much more is the next guy going to be? Where are you going to find one? Like, you have all of those, like, massive questions that, you know, will get triggered if you go to that next thing. So again, it goes back to finding the right team, doing your research, you know, like doing background check on people, you know. I mean, it's basic and simple as it is. Like, when you go buy a TV, you're not going to buy the first one you see in the store. You're going to look online, you're going to see review, you're going to read reviews, you're going to ask your friends which one they have, you're going to, you know, really question what you need, and then you're going to make your decision. And sometimes, I mean, it's crazy, but sometimes in construction and architecture, it feels like maybe people pull the trigger a little too quick.
They do. It's so funny. So there's a few things.
But those things are meant to last forever, you know, or like for many, many years. And it's a lot of money. So it doesn't make any sense.
One of the points you brought up, which I thought was really good, is that, what was it? You were talking about client. What was it? Clients. What was the first part of what you just said?
You always do that and I always forget.
I know. We're recording at night and the sun is set and we haven't turned on the lights, which I quite like, but also it's making my ability to keep track of the conversation very difficult.
You're starting to look really blurry.
Well, what's the vodka you're drinking? I told you, don't drink vodka while on the podcast.
I have a problem with vodka,
you were remarking about clients having this little voice in their minds where they think, if I let this person go and my home is not complete, how the heck is it going to be completed? Am I going to have an incomplete home? It's a very rational thing to feel. However, contractors will hate me saying this. As much as there are bad contractors, decent contractors who can finish the job are a dime a dozen. Really. Yes, there are some phenomenal contractors that are the 1% that are very rare and exquisite. So if you're one of those people and you're listening, you're like, how dare you say that I'm a dime a dozen, sir? I'm not talking about you. Finding people who can at least get the job done and do decent, and they're not going to rip you off, like, there's plenty of them. And again, coming from an architect, so grain of salt, but I think it's actually much more difficult to find an architect / designer that fits with you than it is to find a contractor who's going to execute at a good standard. Let's say 80 out of 100 standard, right? Which, to be honest, 85 to 100, 85% quality out of 100% quality, most people will not know the difference between 85 and 100. The very discerning clients will, for sure, and we will. I mean, for us, it's like 95 to 100. There's a big difference, but finding a contractor to finish it out, not a problem. So I don't know. If you're listening and you're in one of these positions, you're concerned, start talking to other contractors. Start talking to your architect and ask him for other contractors, because... Or
send us a message on the hotline and we can help you out and tell you which path you should go on.
You know what's funny is that, so I was talking to another prospective client on the phone, And they found us through like online or something, and they had watched some of the videos and clips or something like that. And a big thing that we preach very often is for as we've done on here, is for clients to do their research, right? To do your research. Don't be winging it and whatever. I don't know if this project's going to happen. It doesn't matter. It was a very nice conversation with this gentleman. So he's talking to me, and he's laughing, he's joking. He's like, well, according to what you said, I shouldn't be hiring you because you're the first person I'm calling. And it's not the first time.
You can call Marina. It's the second person.
Yeah. To be honest, it's not the first time that's happened. And I was remarking, obviously, this to you the other week, a few weeks ago, and I was like, as much as I want clients to do their research, and I also want them to do that for us, so I know if they choose us, then we're a really good fit for each other. As much as it makes sense, as much as I want it, I would also really like for a client to call us and just say, I know you guys, let's go.
I think it's the same thing.
Which does happen, but
I think it's the same thing as dating. Some people that just find the right match right away, right off kindergarten or high school or whatever, and
goodness,
that's their person. They just found their person. And some others, they need to, have a couple of different person along the way before finding the right one. And I do think both can happen. And if you have a strong connection, you might not need to talk to other people. You could just go with that person.
I'd like to know from the architects and designers listening, the way I feel about that, and people will say this, I'm just being, egotistical, is so at a certain tier of professionals, it really is just about fit.
Yeah.
Like the level of service, the quality of design in general, the fees, everything's going to be very close to each other, like within fractions of a difference, right? Very, very, very minute. So minute that it really doesn't make a difference at all. It's just about who do you fit with regarding personality, how they communicate, the style of the design, that's basically it. And the other things too, like I'm saying, budget, customer service, quality of documentation, et cetera, those are the same from one office to the next at some point, right? So that's a fact. That's true. And that's true for contractors too. However, I find my point of personal frustration when it comes to getting clients and not getting clients is that I know that a 99% chance, if they don't go with us and they go with this other architect, this other designer, they're not at the same level as us. I know it, man.
But the other designer probably think the same on their side.
Well, that's why I want to hear from the other architects and designers. Do you guys feel the same way? Because I feel the same way. But again,
but to me, it goes back to a match. I mean, I think, then there is like our kind of clients out there. And for these other people, these other designers and architects, they also have their kind of people out there. And, as much as, I believe in what I do and how I do it and how we do it, it might not be for everybody. You know what I mean?
I think that's true. I think this also touches on another subject of, we were speaking with a fellow business owner the other night who's not an architect, but they're in a creative space where they create things, physical things, and that involves people and orchestrating people. Very complex. And, they were saying, well, we're kind of struggling right now and have been struggling, really. And they're trying to figure out how to find those right clients.
Yeah.
That's number one thing. How do you find the right people? And then once you're in front of those people, how do you convey your value to them?
It's interesting.
Hard.
You talked about matchmaking earlier on. And, there is like publicist, there is like business advisor and this and that. But like a matchmaking person would make sense. And matchmaking has been actually very successful for dating, right? I mean, it's been happening in certain culture. I'm thinking of like India and like, some places in Africa that like for centuries, right? Matchmaking is a thing. And I'm thinking, wow, could somebody create an a matchmaking app for like, okay, I'm looking for, a contractor, and these are kind of like the things I'm looking for in a person, or where you can swipe left or right and get in touch with people.
They call it House. So
that's not what it is. I mean, House is still like, it's basically a LinkedIn with images, and you can click on like a few reviews. It's like a better version. It's like a design version of Yelp. It's not a matchmaking.
Okay. I understand what
it's
you're saying.
It's an inventory of businesses, but you still have to be the one making your match. Like nothing is making it for you.
I understand. Well, there's two things I would say with that. First, if you qualify House as being, sort of what you're saying, my criticism of a lot of these matchmaking or Yelp kind of database things, right? And this extends also, by the way, to publications, magazines and stuff, is that the people who are in charge of making the decisions of who is on their list, right? They are X company qualified. They are AD 100, Arc Digest 100. They are House qualified. They are Yelp qualified. They are this and that. The people making the decisions, you don't know what you're talking about. You were never a serious professional who does not understand half of the stuff that we're talking about. So why are you in that position? Well, they built a company, but that's
that, but also to get that little special badge, like that special badge has been given to you because you've paid money
for it.
You've paid money to get into that club, and it's someone else from that club who's giving you the badge. So it's like super biased. It's like, what's the value here? Like, I give it to 100 random people in the street to decide. Okay, and then there would be fair judgment because
probably better accurate judgment than a lot of these places. So that's one thing. The matchmaking, it's not a common business, the matchmaking thing for our industries, but I have come across a few individuals who do that. There's one individual in the Bay Area whose name maybe starts with a P, maybe not, who everyone in the Bay Area knows of this person because they're a consultant. Let me clarify for people who are like, what the fuck you're talking about? They're a consultant, and they basically give advice. Sometimes it's business, sometimes it's clients, sometimes it's this and that. It's advice. But a lot of their power and their value is matchmaking, right? And I always found that very intriguing as this kind of mystical figure, this wizard person you see, who's like, yes, let me pull from the universe, and this color of individual is good for you, and that person is good for you. Oh, I think you need this type, and I'll link you together. And yes, it's valuable, but I don't know. It's a business owner's frustration when you have customers and consumers. Going back to that individual we were talking with the other night who has the business and they're struggling. It's just when you feel like you have something to offer and you believe in it strongly, getting it across and connecting with the people. When it's a challenge, it's a challenge, but it's also frustrating because if you're really passionate about the craft it is and was the seed. That's it. That is why you're into it. That's how you got hooked into it. That's where you found your calling. That was the starting point, and that is the end point. And everything between those two, the beginning and the end, is just a mechanism of how, right? And when that how, in this case getting clients, is difficult, it's frustrating because
you just need that one key to open the door.
You just need that one key. And also, even if you enjoy that part, like I love that part, fortunately.
Of looking for the key?
Of problem solving business development.
Oh, I hate that.
This is why I go meet people and you don't. This is why I go meet people and you don't. But I think for a lot of business owners, that's where it's frustrating, right? Because it's like, this is actually not really why I got into this, right? Yeah, that's also why a lot of architects stay small practices, because they don't want to have the weight of 10 people in their office, 20 people in their office, because now they're just a business person, which is not a bad thing, but that's what they are, and they don't want to do that. They want to draw. Yeah.
The wonders of life.
I don't think that I should be the one doing BD. It doesn't make sense. Every time we go to any kind of event or we meet somebody and there's the two of us there, no one's interested in me. They just want to talk to you, and I fully support it, and I get it, and I agree with it.
Because I crack up jokes. People want to laugh. I mean, if I ever meet someone who doesn't want to laugh, I just run away. Like, this is not worth my time. I'm here for a good time, you know? But I actually wonder sometimes the same thing. I'm like, should we have an experiment and see? I mean, I do like socializing, and I'm genuinely interested in people, just like meeting people, learning about people, their lives. And, you know, there's just something that I enjoy. If I would enjoy going out every day and every night and meeting hundreds of people, I'd probably get tired of it because, you know, I'm a human being and that just sounds exhausting. But
an introverted human being.
I don't know if I'm very introverted or if I'm pretending to be introverted.
Please, you are introverted.
Why?
No question about it.
No, I enjoy talking to people.
No, that's not the definition of extrovert.
Okay, so tell us what is the definition.
Well, according to the one that I've read, which has been corroborated by
is it from
several
Wikipedia?
People think that an extrovert is someone who enjoys going out and talking to people. That's not the case. The way it's defined is that how you feel recharged, how you get energy. So if you feel replenished and energized by taking a break from being out, and that's your way of re-energizing, then you're an introvert.
I don't think that...
What?
I don't think that's me.
Get the fuck out of here.
I get tired,
You have the worst vision in the mirror then. What are you talking about?
Like, you know me
Oh my
better.
God. I can't.
That's
I
you.
cannot
You're
count
definitely
how,
introverted.
I've always been.
No, but I enjoy it. I come back home and I'm thinking about all of the people I've met or the things I talked about, and it gets me excited.
Well,
Inside,
then you're
I probably don't
because
express
I can't
it.
get you to go out, and once you're out, you're having a good time. I cannot tell how many times in New York I was like, "We should go out," and you're like, "No."
No, but you know, New York days, man, that was exhausting.
Excuses. That's what I hear.
Well, maybe it was an excuse. And you know, looking back, I probably should have gone out way more in New York than I did.
There it is on the record.
But look, we always live far away from the places to go out, and it was always such a trek. And the days in New York are just insane. Like it's, you know, it's a different thing. So but so going back, maybe we should do an experiment and see, like, do we get a lot more clients if Marina is the one who does PT?
Well, maybe we should. It's not a bad idea. Maybe we should do that. Although I can't be left to run the office.
Well, that's the problem. We need billable hours. So.
No, maybe we should. I mean,
I'm not good at selling things like a salesman sells things. I'm good at selling myself and like being honest and sincere, and I can fake stuff. So, you know, if the agenda is to, you know, have some talking points and like be sure to do this and to say that, like, I don't do good. Like, that's just not my style.
I will say that I think because of the podcast that I've now become much more interested in speaking to people genuinely, and I genuinely mean that. We were catching up with some old friends of ours from college. This was like a year ago now, oh my gosh, it was a year ago. That's crazy. Anyway, we're catching up with them, and it had been several years since we'd seen them, I think. And I was talking to their couple. I was talking to the guy of the couple, who's in school. He and I felt had a kind of compatibility because we were both, I guess you could call it introverted, more on the intellectual side, and not really interested in like really being social. Broad generalizations. So we were catching up with them recently, right? And we're talking about this. We're talking about going and meeting people, meeting clients, meeting contractors, meeting whatever, networking in quotes. I was saying, you know, it's actually enjoyable. Like, I'm interested to learn about people, interested in meeting people, talking to them, seeing how can I help them, how can they help us, like all of it. And he was like, his face is like jaw dropped. He's like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "What do you mean what I'm talking about? You like doing that stuff?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's very interesting." And he's like, "Well, you've changed." He's like, where's the David I knew? Because this is not who I knew.
You were kind of a hermit when I met you in school.
I was borderline psycho. I was borderline psychopath.
It looked like you were living in the studio. I was like, you're one of these people who doesn't see sunlight very much.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
But you look 10 no matter what, which isn't fair.
But so anyway, because of the show, now I'm interested in people. Sometimes too much. So when I meet someone, I I guess you call it podcast mode, but not really.
Totally.
I'm just
you're
interested
like doing
in people.
the interview thing.
I want to know.
That point. Where are you from? You go to school? What you do? And I'm like, chill.
But I want to know.
This is a party. Have normal conversation. Turn the interview mode off.
No, but for me, it's not an interview. I just want to know about them because I find it. First of all, I've always found people interesting, even mostly from a distance before, but now more directly. I find it really interesting, but yeah, I think you're right because sometimes I ask people and they're like,
sometimes your transitions are not that smooth, and I'm like, whoa. So they're probably going to be like, am I being interviewed right now? You did that last night, actually. I was like, slow down here, slow down, take your time.
Well, I want to know. Also, what the fuck else are we going to talk about?
I
know.
What are you doing for the holidays, huh?
That's me right there.
I don't know. Maybe we'll stay in town.
Yeah, that's me right there.
Boring.
No, but then you sometimes...
Tell me about your life.
No, but then you kind of start like that, and then like people just... It's actually amazing. I was talking to this lady last night at one of the events we went to, and she was just going on, and I'm like, it's amazing. I'm giving her an opportunity to talk about herself.
Yeah.
You know, like how often does that happen? You know, like your family, your siblings, your kids, they don't want to hear about you like that long for that much. They just get tired, walk away, change room, turn on the TV, start cooking, you know, but like... I'm a stranger and I'm interested in knowing about her. And she was going on and on and on. And I'm like, well, that's cool. I don't have to talk about me. So that sounds good. And I'm learning stuff too, you know. So it was enjoyable.
It was enjoyable?
Yeah, because you always learn things that you did not know. And I think that's probably why I like talking to people, especially if they're from like, I don't know, different areas or they come from different places, is learning about things that I don't know.
Things that you don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
well, I don't know. Like they came from a certain country and they grew up and they did this and they did that and things work like that over there, and you know, like, or like they're in a profession that I don't know much about, so I'm gonna learn about what this profession is about. I think honestly, I think one of the things I enjoy is learning, and it's probably why I like architecture and design in general, because I always feel like I'm learning new things, or like especially with single home work, like I'm learning from the client I'm working with. Mm-hmm. And I don't know of many professions when you keep learning stuff. I feel like a lot of the jobs out there, you've learned your things, you're just applying it, mm-hmm. you know? Mm-hmm. And I could never do a job like that. Like I could never do a job like that.
You couldn't?
No. No. Why are you making fun of me?
You know what I like? Is mirroring.
Okay, I think this is the end of this podcast.
It didn't work as well with you though, because I need to work on my mirroring tactics. Did you try mirroring at the events we were at recently? I tried it, but it feels too awkward. It feels too awkward, you know.
No, I actually never employed that skill because I feel like it's kind of like, I'm just going to keep running around the pot. Like, I gotta just keep talking about the same stuff, just in different ways.
Yeah, maybe.
I just want to get to the next thing. So.
Oh. Some people are more naturally gifted at just being part of the scene, talking, making connections.
Yeah, and it's hard when you go out, let's say after a day of work, or you've been like on the phone dealing with contractors who don't want to do emails, you know, and your brain, or you've been on the phone with Verizon for 2 hours and your brain is fried, and now you gotta try and make some sense when you're talking to strangers. Like, you kind of have to be able to get into that mode.
Yeah.
But it was interesting. You did mention last night we went out to 2 events, and you were like, oh, it was actually good to do 2 events in one night because the first one was kind of a warm up to the second one.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. It makes sense because it does take a while when you go somewhere where you don't know people to like get into the groove, you know, approach people, start talking to them, this and that. So I have to do that from now on.
I guess.
Doubling up.
It's such a crazy thing and different thing to have a business and then be proactive about meeting people. Like, it's just the difference between that versus being a person who works at an office, you know, you got your computer doing stuff or visiting job sites, and that's the extent of what you do. It's just it's not even close to being the same realities.
Yeah.
It's very, very strange. Very strange. And I think also, like, I tend to resonate with people who because we're an office that's looking to expand and to grow and to et cetera, et cetera. And when I meet somebody who's in that same mentality, it doesn't matter the industry. It's very exciting because I spend my entire day is thinking about these things. That's all it is. I mean, and the work too.
I've noticed you're getting more and more gray hair. You might have to slow down.
But that's the thinking, and you meet someone else who's also thinking it too. It's just, I don't know. I don't know what it is. It's exciting.
Yeah, to the future.
The future is now. Should we wrap it up?
Let's wrap it up. I'm getting hungry.
Oh, me too. Okay, give us an outro.
Thank you, dear listeners, for listening to this another episode of the Sacred Studio Podcast with us and mostly David rambling about things. No, but most seriously, thank you for listening to it. If you do like the show, please keep listening, share it around, leave us a review. It's actually one of the best ways to support the show. You can find us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, and most of the podcast platform. We're also on social media, mostly Instagram, a little bit of Facebook, and probably nothing on Twitter anymore. So you can find us there. We also have the hotline 213. It's not
even called Twitter anymore.
Yeah, that's like how outdated I am. We also have the hotline 213-222-6950, where you can shoot us a text or call and leave a voicemail if you want to share any stories, feedbacks, guest suggestions, anything you want to share. Feel free to reach out. And we have a lot more to come, so please stick to the podcast. Keep supporting us, means a lot. Keeps us going. We've been going for 7 years strong now, so we're not going to retire anytime soon. So that's that.
Okay. Talk soon. Bye.
Talk soon. Bye-bye.